Hey, I'm Mark,
And I'm Michelle,
and we are
Medicine with the
Medicine with the
Metals.
Metals.
Today we have a very cool guest, Mark. We have got Matt Toussaint. He is from Peru and he has been down there since 2007 studying under a maestro for ayahuasca. He's incredible.
Going to be a great guest.
It is. Welcome, Matt.
So my name is Matt, last name Toussaint. I come from originally upstate New York. I studied anthropology there. I was also very much interested in environmental science. I think at that time in my life, I just liked being outside in the forest. So I did a lot of hiking in upstate New York area and, backpacking and just spending time outside. And I lived there for most of my early life into my, say, mid-20s. And it was around that time that I started to get deeper into exploring plant medicines really from a traditional perspective. My background, university background, is anthropology. And that led me in a variety of directions, but ultimately I landed in Peru and started to assist in ceremonies in a professional context with ayahuasca ceremonies. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years and I'm currently still in Peru.
So let's talk. When was your first experience with a psychedelic?
A
And
first
what was it?
experience. Which psychedelic?
Let's just
Yeah,
talk
your
about your
first one.
first.
Yeah, my very, very first experience with a psychedelic classically was LSD in my late teens. And that was a life-changing experience. My very first experience was more like fun. It was more exploratory. I didn't really have a spiritual bent. I wasn't necessarily, working with these medicines or these substances with any real goal until one of my early experiences really, cracked the egg wide open, and things drastically changed in my life. And they have, I've been on that journey basically ever since that experience. So it really was my experience with LSD that opened that world for me.
And what brought you to ayahuasca the first time and where was that?
Sure, good question. So once once I started intentionally working with psychedelics, um, I I I realized that there was something more to it. It wasn't just about the actual substance. So I went for a period of time where I actually went stone cold sober. I didn't touch anything for several years, and I started to try to get behind what was the impetus to these consciousness expanding experiences. And so my main practice then was to work with meditation and try to explore these altered states from a baseline. And it was in a meditation that I had what I can describe as a visitation by different spirits. There were three very distinct presences, and they actually told me in that vision to find ayahuasca and to go to Peru and to drink ayahuasca with a shaman. And that was in 2007 when I had that experience. And I had heard about ayahuasca. I hadn't experienced ayahuasca. And it wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something I was planning to do. I was interested in it, but I did not know that you could go to these organized retreat
Mhm.
experiences in the middle of the jungle somewhere and
Change
participate
your
with
life.
ayahuasca. Yeah, exactly.
Especially in
Change your life.
2007, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah. It
mean,
was
that was a long time ago.
it was the plant medicine landscape and culture and kind of wider community was very, very different back
Yeah, it
then.
was
There.
more probably drugs back then.
Yeah, there was
These
it,
are
it
drugs.
was right, and you didn't hear as much of the conversation about working with them as
Uh-oh.
medicine. It was more like an experience to have, although there certainly was some of that. It just wasn't as widely regarded. So I took that meditation and that visionary experience very seriously, and so I started to look on how I could do that. And in 2008, I went to have my first ayahuasca experience,
In Peru.
which was yet another life changing endeavor. I had no idea what I was getting myself into then.
Hmm.
That made my experience with LSD seem very introductory.
Yeah, right. I understand that. You know what the common denominator is here for most all of us here is how we break these paradigms of reality through these psychedelic. I mean, once we really break that paradigm and we see something different, somebody expressed this like a few weeks ago. Once we see different, man, we're all in, aren't we? It's just like, what just happened? I don't believe anything else. Let me go do this. There has to be something more here. Nothing else has worked. This changed me. It's
And
just
let me go
once we
deeper,
yeah.
deeper,
And
deeper.
these paradigms break
Yeah.
and they're like, the 3D world, they don't become drugs anymore. They become reality. They really become my reality. And like my reality is not their reality. It's like there's so much more than the simplicity of just everyday life. When you expand into these plant medicines, it's really a beautiful experience. And like, I don't know, I don't think you can really touch these experiences until you break those paradigm shifts. They're just kind of like experiences. But when you have these powerful ones like you have, Michelle has, most of us have, and you break that paradigm, man, reality just changes, doesn't it?
And one of the things that I love about what you're saying, and I very much relate to that, um, is that you go into these worlds, and you come back into what we call the 3D world, and it's not that the worlds of the psychedelics or the spirit world, you could even say, as we use that
Hmm.
more kind of traditional language here, it's not that that's other anymore. It's like the world of spirit and what it offers, and those altered states come back with you, and then the 3D world becomes what you could say even more psychedelic, and the mundane reality becomes far, far more rich with meaning and importance, and it really makes you look at value in life and what you're doing and just the gift that this entire experience is. I mean, in many ways, just being on earth is the most psychedelic thing ever.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Like 1 in a billion of us make it here.
Yeah,
So
right.
let's jump into a little bit of anthropology. You want to go ahead?
No, I was just gonna say, but when you went and you had your first experience in 2008, and then you went back home to New York,
Mm.
right? Because you didn't move to Peru right away. Was
Mhm.
it did you find it challenging to be back in that world? Did you wanna get how long
Yes.
before you went back into this world that you live in now?
Sure. So the re-entry after my first
The re-entry, I
experience with
love that.
ayahuasca, yeah, the re-entry. It was very difficult initially, and I share this with our guests, with our participants who come to our retreat as well, because that really is the crux of the matter: is what are you going to do after? And there can be this sense of chasing the ecstasy, but I find that the real depth of meaning and the lasting meaning comes from actually being in the world. And so back then, when I got back to my world, it was a little rocky. I wasn't oriented, and it took me about a year and a half before I felt like I'd hit ground. And that year and a half, even though it was really difficult, and I felt like in some ways I was even more lost than when I went. But when things did come together, that was when I really was able to touch the magic of the medicine, a year and a half removed from actually experiencing it. And it was life-changing in a way that words, even now, all these years later, continue to fall short. But that was also when I realized that there was something way bigger that was going on within not only my individual experience, but with what was actually happening inside that psychedelic space. And the thing with ayahuasca, it was so much more than the experience of the DMT and the visions and all of that. It was the craft and the way that the shamans led and
Mhm.
guided the space. And that
Yeah.
is what really compelled me to go back. And it was about a year and a half after my first experience that I went back again, and I had another experience with ayahuasca at the same place with the teacher who I've continued to work with all these years. And I was interested in what were the mechanics, what were the technicalities of this ancient lineage-based traditional practice. And that's that's what pulled me in. It was, yes, the experience of ayahuasca was life-changing and awe-inspiring and continues to be to this day,
Mhm.
as a matter of fact. But I wanted to get behind the curtains, and my interest in learning the practice of the medicine really started then.
Yeah, very interesting you say that, how you say something, and all these, I've been in this space for a while, and, chasing the ecstasy. How many of us get
Mm.
trapped in that? Wow, what a great, I mean, because we do. We chase the ecstasy of everything in life, but once we stop chasing that ecstasy and really figure out what that is, it's really pretty powerful. Because I think most of us, when we jump in this medicine space, especially psychedelics, it can be a little scary, but at the end of those journeys, man, there's that ecstasy that we're trying to look for at every one of those ending of experiences that we'll never get because that's in us anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we got to find, so at the end of the day, I love the aspect of like, because me myself too, and I think Michelle, we're really connected to these tribes. Like they
Mm.
really like influence us. They like some of my experience, like one of the most powerful ones was when Mana like sat over me. I never shook like this in my life in every part of my body. And I was like, how did this guy know to do
Mhm.
that at this very same moment? He did that and
Mhm.
he released all this. Now, those kind of things really intrigue me. Like, how does that happen? Like, how did he know how to do that? And it
And we
just
didn't
doesn't happen.
understand that.
It just doesn't happen because it happened because he knew to come to me at that. And those things are like very powerful to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not like coincidence that he knew to do that. And it's just, I mean, they have a way, they have a magic in them.
Mm.
I don't like the word shaman because, I like to call them medicine men. I don't even think a medicine man doesn't like to be called a shaman,
Page.
a
Yep.
page.
Yep.
I think a shaman is somebody that's just a teacher above teachers. I think it's disrespect to call yourself a shaman, but that's just my belief. But just to see what these people do and how they do it and how they can manipulate your journey, or not manipulate it, but they know how to navigate it. It's just amazing.
Navigate, that's a better word. And we didn't even understand this concept. I mean, when Mark and I first went and drank ayahuasca, we did it in the United States. We did it in
Mm. Mm.
Orlando, and it
Mm.
was a beautiful experience, and I'm not gonna take anything away from it, but I remember at the time for that first year or 2 before we actually went to the jungle and drank medicine, and people would say, "But you don't understand. It's very different when you go and you drink it with an indigenous tribe and you sit in a maloca and it's just a very different experience." And I remember thinking, "Well, it was beautiful no matter what, but wow, were they right? It is very different when you go and you sit with an indigenous tribe." And now we love the Shawanawa tribe from Brazil. We sit with them in Costa Rica. We support them 6%, the reciprocity. I mean, it's
I
so
love that.
important.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do. We definitely love that aspect of it. And I think you can throw a little bit of education here with your anthropology background of how this
Absolutely.
works. So tell us a little bit.
Sure. How does it work? Well,
Well, we don't know how it works, do we? Mm.
How
They
does it
do.
so
work?
They do.
it, it's that, I mean, that part of it, the anthropological background has been fundamental and really critical to, uh, I think my longevity in the space and being able to approach it with that, cultural sensitivity and openness. And uh, when I first started to train as a student with Maestro Alberto, and that started in 2014, and so it's been about 10 years. And I think over that whole time, he's maybe given me 3 to 5 like direct statements. Like there's almost no verbal direction or guidance in terms of like, how do you do this? How does that work? What do you do in this situation? What do you do in this situation? And what you're meant to do is learn directly from the plants. And I would say, so how does it work? The the fundamental principle in the tradition is spirit. And so it's not even physical plants that you're working with. You're working with the spirit of the plant. And one of the ways that you could look at that is that a plant is a spirit that has a body that looks like a tree. It's not that the tree is a plant that has a spirit that's somewhere else. It's that the original point of contact, the original energy, the essential energy is the spirit, and that manifests into what we know as the world in some kind of embodied shape. And we are like that too. And that's, often what we say is that we are like the plants in that way. We are also spirits who come into this world and embodied. And so the main essential component to understanding and learning the technicalities is getting to know the spirits and learning how to communicate with them in multifaceted, multidimensional ways. It's not didactic. It's not we tell you, you listen and then do. It's that it's almost like they infuse you with the essence of their knowledge and their wisdom, and you discover that you know how to do things without ever thinking about it. And so that relationship with spirit is certainly the foundation and the most important part. And the way that the local community that I work with in the wider Amazonian culture, they relate to everything as having this quality that we know as spirit, this animating force that is alive beyond the way we relate to the world as being alive. And so that bond with, specifically in the case of ayahuasca, but also many of the other plants that we diet with and that we form these relationships with, that is really important, and they become your teachers. And so it's almost like Maestro Alberto, in his teaching, what he's really doing is creating an opportunity to see if you as a student can form those bonds and can learn from the spirits and then apply it in action in the ceremony with people doing healing, and all of the language, being able to describe the technicalities for how it works comes much, much later. I can't tell you the number of times I have been in ceremony doing something with somebody, and somebody would ask, like, well, how did you know? How did you do that? And I don't have an answer. I don't really know. It's this emergent quality that manifests in the space, with the ceremony, with the participants, with the maestros, with the practitioners. And it's like all the components are equally valid, and they all kind of come together in this symphonic way that truly is magical. And there almost is no way to describe it, though.
Really, there
Try
isn't.
and try we do.
Especially when it comes to plants. I mean, we talk
Yeah.
about plants a lot, plants, 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 because we do. And people think, like, I mean, the average citizen probably looks like, oh, we're crazy. But these things, like, they don't have a brain, they don't have a force, they don't have nothing, but they're teach us. I mean, like, just look at mushrooms, just functional, non-functional, whatever. We'll call them plants, okay? But look at what a mushroom can teach you. I mean, look what a lion's mane or a cordyceps, or I mean, we dive into these things and just sit with them for a short period of time, and I promise you, your thoughts will change. Your
They are
body will
master
change. You
teachers.
know,
Yeah.
ayahuasca, like if I had to like tell the world, like if somebody came to me and said, listen, what's the psychedelic I should do? I would 100% say ayahuasca. There'd be no doubt, because that is the teacher. That is the plant. That's the mother. That's the soul. She'll never hurt you. She'll guide you, and she'll break you through if you want to. And I just don't think I don't think us as a society understand the power of plants. And if you understand the power of plants, the FDA goes, and what do? Everything we consume that's in a pharmaceutical, 90% of it is plants. I mean, so we have to, like, what are we missing here? Where did we just over hop this step here?
Yeah.
Well, I think you just described it perfectly. I mean, you just gave
Exactly.
me a new insight that just kind of blew my mind when you said, that it's not the plant, it's a spirit that takes on the form of a plant. Well, exactly. That's exactly what it is. But to put it into those simple words, okay, we help people with microdosing. Okay. And I talk to people all day long about microdosing. And every single one of those conversations, I say to them, at some point, this plant, I mean, it's a fungi, but we talk about it like it's a plant. It is
Sure.
going to talk to you, and it is going to pull you further, and it is going to make you want to go deeper. It just is. And these plants are smarter than we are. And when I say that, sometimes people have never done this before, look at me like I'm crazy, right? Or what are you talking about? What you just said makes total sense. And that's the way I'm going to start describing it from now on, because they're spirits, they're master teachers taking on the form of a plant. It's not the plant, it's the spirit behind the plant.
It's pretty cool.
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah, it blew my mind, and continues to. And it's amazing because we get all kinds of people who come to our retreat center Casa del Maestro. And our lineage holder, Don Alberto, he's been doing this since he's 8 years old. I think he's 68 as of this year. And so that's just, it's incomprehensible. And he's very traditional in how he does it. But, we get people who don't necessarily believe in any of the things that we're talking about now. They're just like at a point in their lives where they need help, and they've heard that this can help, and they don't have any background. But, I've seen countless times, maybe not countless, but many, uh, where you have a pretty fixed perspective person come in and break open not only into the power of the healing of what can happen within the experience, but the power of connecting to this whole process from spirit out and also spirit in. And, we recently had someone who's kind of a corporate person and, lives a relatively what you'd call a normal life. He like came out of the retreat hugging trees and talking to plants. He like went home and he's hanging out in the park, sending pictures of him sitting under the willow tree and like hugging it. And this is within a week. And it's just a complete, like you said in the beginning, paradigm shift. But I think the way the practice, curandismo is what they say here, the practice with ayahuasca, and in our tradition, it's very heavily focused on trees as well. We work with a lot of different tree medicines, tree spirits. It's much better described not as plant medicine, but as plant spirit medicine. And the essential ingredient is the spirit. And once you form that bond, we do and continue to be able to work with people and do healings, for instance, without actually consuming anything. And so we'll have people come sometimes and they don't even drink the ayahuasca. They'll sit in the ceremony and they will have these really profound, shifting, essential experiences that work, because what they're doing is they're tapping into the current of the spirit, and that is ultimately what we are bringing forth and calling and helping people form the bonds with.
Well, sure, I can believe that. I mean, we volunteer at that same place. Now we go down to Costa Rica and do that, but it's the same thing. I mean, I can go either drink medicine or just sit in a ceremony and hold space and get just as much, if not more. I mean, it's just as powerful.
Yeah, so true. So, lineage wise, anthropology wise, looking
Mhm.
through the whole cycle of how all this works, how long do you think we've been using these plant medicines for? What do you think?
Well, if you look broad, and if you also consider mushrooms within the category of plant medicine, it's a really, really long time. It's many thousands of years. If you look specifically at ayahuasca, there's a bit of an anthropological debate in terms of exactly how long that has been used. But you have to look at ayahuasca in a couple different ways, because it is at minimum a two plant combination, but there is evidence, and there are currently groups who work with just the vine. So it's likely that what we know as ayahuasca is a combination of the ayahuasca vine, the Banisteriopsis caapi, plus a DMT containing admixture. Usually it's chacruna. Sometimes it's another plant called chalipanga, which is more common in Colombia and
Colombia.
in northern
For
Peru.
yahe?
Yeah, for yahe, that's right.
Yeah.
And but there are several others. I mean, the Amazon is in a way a DMT factory. The amount
Of course.
of high potency DMT containing plants in the Amazon is pretty ridiculous. Like
Yeah,
worldwide, there's
Everything contains
like,
DMT.
doesn't like 90% of all plants contain some form of DMT?
there are traces, but in the Amazon you have these like high potency, like
Yeah.
thousands of times more than what you would find in like a
pretty
common
amazing.
grass. But yes,
So-
it is. I mean, and we don't really know what the function is at the low level, but in these high potencies, of course, it has immediate impact in human consciousness, which also raises a number of interesting questions. But it's very likely that ayahuasca was used as some kind of purgative and as a way to connect with the world of spirit mean, hence the name of ayahuasca. It's literally the vine of spirit. That
Mhm.
word aya in Quechua, that's what that means. It means spirit or death. And I interpret that to mean not death and as in like you're going to die, but the world beyond the living, where spirits go and where they come from. So it is the vine of gaining access to that world of spirit.
Mm.
And
And
Huasca
you
simply
really
means
do, though.
vine.
You
So,
really do in those experiences. You
oh
really
yeah.
gain the access to that spirit. And like, if we deep down, like, let's talk about psychedelics for like throughout the eons. I mean, I think everything we've created and everything we've done and how we evolved. I mean, I don't think we sat there and drank Diet Coke. We had to do something to evolve our minds. I mean, if we look at the Bible in general, I mean, there's not a story in the Bible that I could say that wasn't written on a psychedelic experience, okay? Because every time they're drinking a sacrament, which is the acacia tree, which is full of DMT, but in the 3D world, we just change that to wine because we're a drunk society. So,
Right,
you
right.
know, we want to
That's
make
how it
it
resonates more with
yeah,
with
the
where
people,
Yes,
we're
it
at now.
the
does.
people. So,
Yeah.
but the real truth is, it was DMT, and it's psychedelic, and they evolved through that process and they solved things and everything we've done and everything that's grown and we evolved from even like the stone ape theory. I have to understand that maybe a monkey didn't really eat the psilocybin, but that ape form had to evolve somehow to us some way. It just didn't do that by nature.
Yeah, yeah. There are no accidents there. And
Of
if I
course.
just look at my personal life and how much like the culture of my own consciousness has been affected through these experiences, I find it to be highly likely that experiences with psychedelics and these different plant medicines were crucial to the development of culture and particularly religious and spiritual engagement of those cultures and spiritual development of those cultures. So we're
Bill
likely
Wilson
looking at
found
tens of
them.
thousands. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's
He
another
found it
origin story. Right.
totally.
They could keep going back and
Sorry,
back,
I
but we
didn't mean
don't.
to interrupt you. I just get so
No, that's
excited
fine.
about
Yeah,
it.
we just
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
we don't put it in perspective. I mean, we just overlook the reality of it and we make a story up that because people don't want to
Hear the truth.
they don't want to hear the truth. I mean, like I said earlier, a drunk society. That's what America is. We're a really drunk society. And it's really hard for people to, they question us why we don't drink. And I should be questioning us, why do you? It's just like
Mhm.
it's baffling. So
Yeah,
I love all these subjects and I love diving deeper into all these medicines like this. It's so cool.
yeah, me too.
So let's talk about the little retreat center. Let's talk about Casa del Maestro. Is that how you say it?
Love
Yep.
that name. And is it a place where
Yeah,
people go to also to train to? I mean, you've been studying there for 10 years. That's a long time. That's
sure.
amazing.
Yeah. So uh, we host first of all, Casa del Maestro. The name literally means maestro's home,
Mhm.
and it is the home of Don Alberto, who's been my teacher for over 10 years. I mean, he was the first ayahuasquero that I drank with in 2008. So I've known him for 16 plus years, which is just extraordinary. He's a really important figure in my life and in my world in a lot of different ways. So the retreat center is built on his and his family's property in a small village on the Ucayali River, which is one of the major tributaries of the Amazon, kind of in northeastern Peru. That village is where he grew up. It's where he was born. It's where his ancestors migrated to. They're originally from outside of Tarapoto in the high jungle, and there was some pretty chaotic things going on in Peru, and that led to their migration. They landed in this small village, which is in the greater Iquitos, Peru region. So the retreat center is built there. It's very family oriented. It's staffed and run, primarily by Maestro Alberto and his family. And so we travel out there with groups regularly, once or twice a month, and we go to the place. It's not fancy. In some ways, we've gone in the opposite direction as some of the wider plant medicine or ayahuasca community, where you're seeing a lot more luxury spaces happening, and which is fine, because I think for some people that might be the only way to gain entry, or
Mhm.
that is the right
Absolutely.
way for them to experience ayahuasca. I have no issues with that. But our um, our intention, and what is really important and what we value is to present the medicine in a very traditional way. And so our groups and the way we educate people is very traditional. And so we present and we share and we discuss the medicines in a way where you're getting an education and an anthropological, a spiritual, very humanistic kind of education, rooted in the Amazonian culture, in the language. We speak a lot of Spanish during our process. We teach people about different concepts, about ways that the medicine has been worked with, and it really is blossoms from the traditional language and the lineage that Maestro Alberto, is the head of, and that he's represents, a long line of his ancestry working with plant spirit medicine. And so we like to, carry the medicine in that way, and give people, let's not just experience ayahuasca, let's experience the culture, let's experience the history, let's learn about what this actually is in a way that is all encompassing and multisensorial. So it's physical, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's cultural, it's linguistic. And we like to give a holistic kind of overview and immersion into the world of plant medicine. And so, for instance, we take people to the forest and we show them the actual plants. We prepare plant medicines with the participants. We cook the ayahuasca with everybody, and Maestro Alberto is around and to talk, and people can ask him literally anything that they want at any time. It's a very basic setup in terms of the actual structures, but it's so rich in meaning and humility. It's a very grounded space and experience. And like you were saying earlier, Michelle, when people come there, perhaps they've had ayahuasca in other places. It's a very different thing when
Yeah,
you're in the homeland, and not just
absolutely.
the homeland, but that actual region is a historical region for many different kinds of groups drinking with ayahuasca. It's also where chacruna grows naturally in abundance, and so that makes
Mm,
sense that
that does.
that's the plant that you have, in companion with ayahuasca. So we do groups, like I said, once or twice a month, and we're also very dieta focused. So we offer plant diets, which is another process. It's a different way of working with plant medicines and plant spirits. And we offer
Sure.
that in conjunction with our ayahuasca ceremonies.
Now, how long is just a typical retreat like that? How long is that?
Our standard is 9 days. So we do 9 days, and there's 5 ceremonies within that 9 days. And then the diet that people do is 8 days. So they start the day after we arrive for the dieta. So you're in the diet for that 8-day period. And then, we're out there for 9 days. And we also have groups that are a little bit longer that go for 13 days.
And what do you find the most challenging part is about bringing people out there?
Ooh, that's a good question. The most challenging, I mean, getting out there is an adventure. So that's probably the first big challenge. But once you get there, it's so calm. It's such a tranquil environment that people tend to settle. Um, I think the most challenging aspect is, wow, that's a really good question. I think people getting comfortable with facing what it is that they're coming to actually deal with. That's probably the most challenging. That's what comes up regularly. It's like often, for
S-
instance, go ahead.
So, like an intention almost.
Yeah, like people will come and they'll have an idea of why they're there, and then when the medicine brings them face to face with maybe the deeper reason why they're there, often there's resistance, and there's pushback, or people get really scared, or they don't want to look, you know, into that dark corner, and they don't want to
Mm,
shine the
Sure.
light there, because then they're going to probably confront what is at least at a deeper, closer to the root of what got them there in the first place. It's
Hmm.
really
That's
common that
beautiful.
people don't
Yes.
actually know why they're coming to ayahuasca. That was true for me as well.
Are you finding people are coming there who are already on this path, or it's their first time drinking ayahuasca?
We get both. We get plenty of people who have a lot of experience, and we also get first timers because of where we're located and our pretty traditional setup. That tends to be a natural filter, and so we're so fortunate that we get like the people who come are just such amazing quality people, and they're all you know by and large, I'd say pretty much everybody who shows up is really serious about the work, whether it's their first time or they have a lot of experience with medicine in other traditions or other locations. But there is a seriousness that tends to come with the groups who decide to go all the way out there to drink ayahuasca. And I tell them on pretty much every retreat, like I thank them for making that journey, because I think that's an aspect to how their own individual process with the medicine goes. It's like, in a way, the ayahuasca acknowledges that and rewards them for deciding to come, to the motherland and experience the medicine in this way. Because you could go do a ceremony around the corner in almost, every city above 1 million people in the United States on probably almost every weekend. Like the jungle cat's out of the bag, and it's probably not going to go back in. So to No, I don't think so either.
You
But
know,
to
and I'm
take
grateful that there are places in the States that people can go, because
I
not everybody
totally.
can leave the States, right? We have a
Yeah,
lot of people that are
that's right.
felons and they can't
Yeah,
leave, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
deserve the healing just as much.
And
So I'm
yeah.
grateful for places, but I don't think I'll probably ever drink ayahuasca in the
I don't
United
think
States
so
again
either,
after
for
we've
sure.
done both.
And we
I
talked
can do
about
it.
me either. I could never. And we talked about the challenges, and we know what the challenges are is facing yourself. So we're going to talk to the audience right now about the challenges, because they are. And I think that's what we all call about with ayahuasca. But once we face those challenges and we dive in, let's talk about, what do you see the most from somebody, or what is the most common thing after their experience? What do people, what's their common denominator there? What do people say?
Mm. Awe,
Oh, yep.
awe.
I think everybody too. I think, they're probably, you never hear anybody say, man, I was the worst decision I ever made, or
Oh,
Very rarely.
no, and I think when people do say that, it's a very temporary state that they're in, and then they often say the opposite within a period of time, whether it's the
you're
next
right.
day or weeks
Sure.
later. But people do question it often afterwards, not so much during the experience, but often afterwards. They get back home and they start, reintegrating into their lives, and they've been shaken up in such a way where they you know the things that they put in the places that they used to keep them no longer work, and so they have to make changes, and that can be uncomfortable. But
Yes.
I've never seen anyone come back to me personally, and I've worked with probably thousands of people at this stage, and say, that was the worst thing I've ever done. I wish I hadn't done that, even if they may have had that thought along the way. I think that's kind of part and parcel to doing the work, really.
What do you offer in terms of integration? Because, Mark and I believe that integration is the
Mhm.
most important part of any
Mhm.
journey in life, but especially a plant medicine journey. It's the reason we started the plant medicine path was
Yeah,
information,
yeah.
education, integration. So what do you offer for integration? What does that look like for your community?
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I mean, that is the crux of the entire journey. So we start with integration on the very first day when people get there. So we cover aspects, and we start bringing in momentum towards integration right away, from even before we have our first ceremony. And so we cover what that is and what that means, and we start to provide tools pretty early in the experience. And then towards the end of the week, we do a workshop on integration, and so we cover whatever questions that people have, and we start to offer a tool set as it relates to what we had been exploring throughout the week, so that it's relevant to what has come up for people, and what people actually want to know about, or the challenges that people kind of expect to have when we bring that into the conversation as much and as early as possible. Then afterwards, we do community chat groups with each of our retreat groups. So we keep everybody in contact, and myself and our facilitation, our medicine team are also involved in that. We send content regularly afterwards to each group, like through email, that is basically like an overview of the landscape of integration. And in those emails, we offer tools, we look at it conceptually from different ways, we send reminders, and we're kind of little by little just poking the consciousness, saying, hey, remember this, and oh, you can look at it this way, oh, you have all of these options. And then I also, and as well as our medicine team, will do one-on-one sessions with people. And so I'm there to just have that personal contact regularly and as needed. And that tends to be really helpful for people too.
It's just so very important, integration. Like you say, we come home from these experiences, we're wide open, we are broken wide open, and we need some support. We need some help. You have to make changes too, because you're gonna, these experiences are just gonna be experiences if you don't like make the changes you need to make. And if some of those changes means drastic, they're gonna be if you want to change your life, you gotta make some drastic changes. And you have to, especially in the beginning of this path. And that's the most vulnerable time and easy time to do it, just
Mm-hmm.
then. Do a
That's right.
couple of those things then, adapt to them, and then move on. You're going to probably piss a lot of people off from the outcome, but make sure you understand that. You're probably
Yeah.
going to piss your family off, you're going to piss friends off, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, these people, it's all about you. It's this whole how do I say it? This whole evolution we're going through is about us. And, I heard something the other day. What did they say? A nurse was working in a nursing home. What'd she say? She said, almost every single guest, almost every single patient, what they said, what they've been missed out, there was a hospice. They said, I missed out on my life because I always did what everybody else wanted me to do.
Mm.
Wow. That makes so
Yeah.
much sense. We live our lives by what everybody else wants us to do. But until we break that out and we see this is our life, and almost all of them said that. I wish I would have lived my life how I wanted to live it. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's
yeah.
deep. We all need to hear that
Yeah.
as soon as we can. Yeah, that's amazing.
Ayahuasca gives us that opportunity.
And it
Indeed.
does. So great conversation so far. But so before we end here, the future of ayahuasca, the future of plant medicines. I mean, I'm going to tell you in the States, I think we're on a really high right now because we have Elon Musk, who really big proponent of psychedelics, and we have Kennedy, who's sat with ayahuasca so many times. So
Mhm.
we're in a really good spot for people to be aware of these medicines. Where do you see this going?
And what are the
Sure.
harms to come out of it?
You know, I also agree with you. I'm excited about where it goes and about where we're at right now. I think the potential to incorporate plant medicine in contexts that are appropriate for people living in the Western world is very real, and I think a lot more good than harm can come out of that if done right. What I have learned being here in the jungle is that context is really important. And, when we drink ayahuasca, we are embedded in an ancient world that operates, with its own rubric and its own ways of relating and interrelating and understanding and talking about the world. And so I don't find that you can just pluck something out of context and then put it into a new context and expect it to work the same. So I think the future of plant medicine is going to be not so much about whether or not plant medicine works or has benefits, but it's going to be about, for us, and when I say us, I mean people who are in Western cultures who don't have these traditional contexts of where plant medicine has been, a big part of their lives and livelihood for so long. So the task, if you will, is about discovering and creating the appropriate context for doing it in a way that can truly lead to the results, and while also paying homage to where the plants and the practices and the traditions come from, and maintaining a sense of respect for that. And not, being, as an anthropologist, appropriation is always something that is a very sensitive topic. So I don't think the path is to kind of recreate what has been done, but it is to discover what can be done in the ways that will be appropriate for where and how and who will be working with the plant medicine. I do believe that the cultural heritage of plant medicine is for humanity as a whole, and there are traditions of plant medicine throughout the world, time and space, that has touched on, at the very least, and more likely has influenced large cultural movements that we are all a part of. And so finding the specifics and the context and ways to, with respect and integrity, bring plant medicines into the greater culture and into other settings is something that I think will be very beneficial for many people. I don't think, however, you can put ayahuasca in a pill. And the reason for that, I mean, you might be able to have a DMT experience that way, but you're not going to be able to replicate the traditional relationship that the maestros and the experts have with the spirits. And that is, like when we started this conversation, the fundamental aspect of the entire thing. It starts with the spirit. And so you have to find a way to kind of tap in and make access to that part of what we're doing for it to really work. You might be able to get some clinical trials and things like that. I don't feel as positive or hopeful about the real clinical approach. I think you need to have the foundation, though rebuilt in a way that is, like I said, more appropriate for where and who and when and how
I
it's
mean,
being
listen,
worked.
I don't even think that I believe in the approach of drinking medicine in the United States anymore in someone's backyard, and we
Right,
were at a
right,
church and there was, whatever, but it's just it's never gonna be replicated, and it's never gonna take place. You can never go into a doctor's office and take a pill, and that's never gonna be
exactly.
the same thing as going and sitting in a maloka or sitting in a traditional circle with medicine man and whatever that medicine man looks like and wherever he's from, it's tradition, and
Yeah,
you're just never gonna replicate that because it's not just about the medicine. It's about who
right.
you're sitting with. It's about the spirit of the maloka. It's about the spirit of the plants growing around it. It's so much more than just the medicine.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean by context. And so I think to really do that, the approach and the consciousness and the intentionality around psychedelics in the modern world is going to have to shift. The conscious understanding of what it actually is will need to change.
Well, the stigma, you know, 8 million people, 8 million new people tried psilocybin last year. And, that's a chunk. That's a lot, hopefully
You
16
you
million will
said
this year.
last year?
80 million new people
Wow,
tried
that's an
psilocybin.
enormous number.
It's
Yeah.
That's
a
an
very,
enormous
very
number.
big number.
Wow.
So hopefully 16 million new people will try this year.
And it's
So
breaking that stigma.
it's breaking
Yep.
that and awareness and educating people that this is a personal journey. This isn't Western medicine where you take one pill. Everybody's different and everybody's journey is different. And
Yeah.
there's nothing, this is a life changing path. I mean, there's nothing like this isn't like it's a new lifestyle, This is you have to change your life. If you're really stuck and you're stuck, this is psychedelics on stick. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. And I,
Mhm.
I think I think what's interesting, or what I'm thinking about as you're sharing, is that it's not just about the medicine, but it's also not about one thing. It's not about, oh, I'm anxious and I want to heal my anxiety, because when you start to dig into what it's going to take to heal your anxiety, it starts to touch on literally every single aspect of your life and your
Right.
relationships and your work and your
Wow.
approach and how you think and your emotions and your
Well, Matt,
past
you're
and
an
your traumas.
anthropologist, so
And
you see
it goes
all
into
this is from your
everything.
DNA. This is
Yeah.
all DNA, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't this
Right.
like, isn't this from like your greatest of greatest of greatest grandfather passing down
Yeah.
all this? And it's just building, the building
Yeah.
blocks of the DNA are just compounding against each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're fighting ourselves, it's we're fighting our great, 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 great grandfather. You know, it's just, it's so, and that's where we talk about spirits, and that's where we talk about plants. We are a DNA composition is
Yeah.
all we are. We're DNA with a matter in our mind, and all the matter does in our mind, all a brain matter is it tries to save us. All it does is it
Right.
figures things
Right.
out. There's no emotions, there's no feelings, there's no nothing. It is a computer where our
Mm-hmm.
guts, where everything lies is below our gut. Our gut, our root chakra, that's our life. That's everything. That's our wombs. That's our mother. That's like, and we're not
Yeah.
taught this.
Yeah.
It's so amazing that
Yeah.
our brain is just a matter of fact. It is. It's just nothing, but it's a big computer and it just processes things and it processes to save us.
Yeah. 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 And you know, when you start pulling on one string, you're going to end up pulling on all of them. And so I think
Mhm.
being ready for that. Well, you know, there was this quote, this saying, I guess it's not really a quote, that some of our participants were using in our last experience because people were having some rough times midweek. They said, like, Western medicine makes you feel good now, but worse later. You know, native natural medicine makes you feel worse now, but better later. Yeah, and I think
It's
that
medicine, right? It's not supposed to taste good. It's not supposed
yeah,
to feel
exactly.
good.
Yeah,
It's not.
yeah, yeah,
That's a great way to put it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
medicine. That's what our page says to us all the time. It's medicine, Michelle. It's not supposed to feel good.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
we say, hey, I'd rather go for 3 days of hell and come out and my life's gonna be different. I mean, 3 days of sitting with some medicine, like, can you handle 3 days? I can to change my life.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's not 3 days, it's a few hours here, a few hours there. It's 72 hours, 82 hours of
And
no
maybe
sleep.
it's
But
36 hours of bliss. You don't know.
yeah,
You don't know
you
what you're going to get.
never
Exactly.
You
know.
don't know.
But I would take that over any day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, same
What a
here.
great conversation. Can you tell us where we can find you?
Sure. So you can find us at Casa del Maestro Medicina, medicine in Spanish.com. That's our website. If you just search Casa del Maestro Ayahuasca, you'll get all our accounts, our socials, and our website, and so you can find out what we're doing there.
You guys are doing some good stuff down there.
Nice
Yeah, thank
conversation
you.
today. We like talking to people that are in the same reality of the realm.
Absolutely. 10 years on this path and in the same place and living in Peru and living your life's mission. I love what you're doing. Thank you.
10 years and we're still like, it's still so early. We have so much to
Yeah,
learn, don't we, Matt?
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I love learning about myself.
Same. It's been great talking with you. Likewise, I really enjoyed this. Thank you for having me here.